Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeve. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in that store. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey, guys. Welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Everything is lovely. As we get started here, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in the segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who is the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 secret lair cards. Ruben?
Yeah, Anthony Ruffino has some words for you, sir. All caps. For shame, Evan! Exclamation point. Your bear fans are weeping hairy tears.
Wow.
That you didn't pick Bearscape for your list. Amazing art and literally the best pun name with a throwback to the best flavor text in Magic with Werebear. I can barely, all caps bear, contain my outrage at it not being picked.
You know, at some point I was like, maybe, they'll just pick it, right? They'll pick it. I should have picked it. That was on me. Bearscape.
There were a couple that I was like, wow, we didn't pick them. But yeah, go ahead and read Bearscape.
Yeah, Bearscape is a rare, originally from Odyssey, reprinted just recently in a fantastic image that hopefully is on the screen now. It is a 2 green, 1 generic mana rare enchantment that says for a green and generic mana, you exile 2 cards from your graveyard, and you create a 2/2 green bear creature token, and they built a refuge with their bare hands. That's
Perfect.
what they did.
I wanted to pick that one because it was like sort of the iconic one of the entire set. However, I ultimately opted not to just because it isn't really seeing a lot of play. I know at like one point it like almost broke Legacy, but I don't think it sees anything right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I ultimately went with the Mana Confluence on my top 10 because I wanted a reprint that was useful. But yeah, the card is lovely. I hope that we get more things like that on the future on more of a staple card.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that there were a couple of surprises of cards that we did that none of the three of us had. Did we? I don't think we had the Leonin War Leader from OMG Kitties, which surprised me. I thought for sure that was going to be at least top 3 on Evan's list.
It was on my short list for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, understandable. And there were a couple where I was like, wow, we didn't do this one. But Bearscape was definitely the one I was like, wow, none of us picked Bearscape. But at least Anthony picked up the slack for us.
Which we appreciate. And according to chat here, Slago Yanks notes that the original name was Bear Supply to make fun of Air Supply.
Great. What a great...
that reference would have aged poorly.
Yeah.
So
Air Supply is a like
it's an 80s band.
What's that kind of rock called?
Yacht rock.
Yacht rock. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
like
okay.
It's wonderful. That said, congratulations to Anthony. Please contact us on social media for your prize. DM at Twitter, Magic Mike's Cast on Twitter, rather. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway. And stay tuned for our top 10 list this week. And maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate because it's time to talk about the showcases. There have been like 700 of these things. I was a little shocked, honestly, that there were as many as there were when I started to really look at them. But cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of in like a chunk, right? So like all the demigods, all the this. So it's like how many showcase plans are there? Showcase sets, I should say.
Right.
So yeah, there's certainly a lot of cards, but I don't know there was that many different showcase themes.
Yeah, because it's not like we're going to pick, this sketchbook card from Modern Horizons, and then this sketchbook card from Modern Horizons, and then this, second edition D&D art from Adventures, and then this book art from Adventures. It's like you're not going to repeat styles a ton unless they really stand out. So while it is 700 cards, or more than 700 cards, it's a much smaller 700 than it feels.
Yeah, I personally picked my favorite of my favorite sets, basically.
Well, that's a way to start. So, Nerd Girl, why don't you kick us off here with your number 10?
Yeah, so my number 10, it brings back a lot of childhood memories. I am a big D&D fan. I have played a lot. And so I wanted to pick something that was not necessarily super flashy, but really kind of brought me back to the smaller player manuals that weren't necessarily all in color. So I went ahead and I picked Baleful Beholder. It's just a simple common, but I thought that the art was fantastically done. And again, really reminded me of those D&D manuals. We have a 4 colorless black for a creature beholder. It says whenever it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Each opponent sacrifices an enchantment, or creatures you control gain menace until end of turn, and it's a 6/5. So it's a big beastie. It's kind of just a top end of a generic draft deck, but the art here is pretty fantastic, and they did a wonderful series featuring a lot of the more iconic rares, but also just the more simple creatures that you get to see in the D&D campaigns as well, because not every single creature can be at the end of a dungeon.
That's fair. And I thought they did a terrific job. These were the first of its kind, essentially. And to really bring us into the, D&D source book type feel. I love the swash of color behind it, which is great. The little details all over the creature, which is fantastic, which again is very indicative of why those D&D illustrations were so cool and impactful at the time.
Yeah. They didn't go for the goofy earliest Beholder art, which I'm very grateful for. The original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons art for Beholder strikes fear into the hearts of no one. They went ahead and gave us the 3rd edition, which I greatly appreciate. I'll share. I have a picture of the goofiest Beholder image of all time that I'll share with you all in the Discord here.
Oh goodness. Well, I will. I'll try to get it up on screen if it's not too difficult to do so. Oh my God, that looks ridiculous.
It's absurd.
It's like a little golf ball.
It's like a little. He's definitely just a little guy.
It's something.
Yeah. They certainly made the Beholder more menacing in later editions.
I see. All right. Well, fair enough. I'm going to see if I can bring it up here real fast because it is a little silly. But it's important that they chose the right era, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to choose poorly.
And the art that they chose for this showcase, or the art that they got for this showcase, is menacing and is scary and does harken back, but is also perfect for a Magic card.
Yeah. So I have the OG Beholder image on the screen, and you guys just enjoy that. Just take it all in. Think about it. Ruben, what's number 10?
My number 10 is a card that I was looking for the name of, actually, for a Commander deck not too long ago, and I didn't remember what the name of the card was. And then it popped up here when I was looking for my favorite showcase frames. I love the idea of the Sketchbook Frames. And I think that the Sketchbook Frames for Modern Horizons are a really interesting tool in the toolbox for, especially for Masters sets, where you have these reprints or these specialty cards that don't necessarily fit into regular Premier sets. And I decided to go with the other thing that you got to do with the Sketchbook Frames is that you got to get art notes as flavor text. And most of the art notes are like, here's what it should look like. But sometimes you get the mood. And the mood for Rise and Shine is spectacular. Rise and Shine is a generic and a blue for a sorcery that says that target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on each artifact that became a creature in this way, and it has overload of 4 generic blue, which means that instead of target creature, it's each creature or each non-artifact creature. And then the mood here is, you can't keep us locked away anymore. To battle. And I love that. And it's very fun. And it's a book with a torch pointing a letter opener and leading like a chemistry set and some springs into battle. And it's delightful.
I really liked what they did with all aspects of the sketching card. It kind of looks like if you were going through some of the journals of like Leonardo, or who, when you see the like original sketches of things. I even like that the set symbol is like hastily colored in to make it very sketch-like. And another thing I like about this art is it reminds me of like the Sword in the Stone, the animated one from Disney, where he like does the thing and all the little things dance to his tune and do the work. And yeah, this reminds me of
Nice.
Perfect.
Yeah, this was just a terrific little card that, not every card in Modern Horizons 2 is going to set the meta game or whatever, and sometimes
Sure.
it's just about the sweet flavor text you get. And that's okay too. Speaking of things that aren't sort of the default that you would think of when you think of certain sets, this is a card that, like, I get that, everyone loves the Love Struck Beast and stuff, and everybody loves the Goldilocks and stuff, and that's cool. But, when I was looking at the showcase cards, and I was like, what, I want to pick something from Throne. I want to, like, what really I think is, like, cool, and it speaks to me. I think it's really iconic. It's really impactful. And, like, the one that stood out to me when I was looking at it was Curious Pair, which I think just really, it was a really great way to show the Hansel and Gretel of Magic, essentially. This is Curious Pair is a green and generic mana for a common creature human peasant with an adventure that's called Treats to Share for 1 green mana. It's a sorcery where you create a food token. Otherwise, you can pay 2 mana for this 1/3, and it has a flavor text of, quote, "It's gingerbread, like Mother makes. What is there to be afraid of?"
Love that.
Yeah.
What amazing art this is. Also, the creepy hands at the bottom. Oh my God.
Creepy hands.
So this is the inspiration art for the TwitchCon 2019 MTG Arena sleeve. With the hands coming up from the bottom. And then also all the promotions that they sent the creators had those berries along the top that were kind of falling down. So this is kind of the premier art of the set that they used for all of their promotional items, which I find to be very cool, that they picked something not super flashy, which I really like.
Yeah, this card is, like, cool, it's subdued, but it's still impactful. You know exactly sort of what it's referencing, but it has that great creepy angle to it. And I thought it was just really neat. I thought it was one of those cards that hasn't been called out a lot that deserves some time.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move here to number 9. Ruben, what you got?
Number 9 is my first of 3 hires on somebody else's list. And honestly, this is the one I'm least surprised by.
Fair enough. Nerd Girl, what's your number 9?
I do have a number 9. So we're going to talk about a card that really strikes me because of the colors. I tried to only pick cards that I genuinely feel are better than the original in some way, shape, or form. And this one, I don't think I'll ever play this deck, but this is the kind of thing I would get a playset of and put in my collector binder. I don't care how much it's worth. I would keep them forever. I have my Deathmas Raptors and, like, my random things that I just really like. And Lotus Cobra is one of them.
Nice.
The art on this is fantastic. We have a 2 mana colorless green for a snake creature that says landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color. And then the colors just go crazy in this art. I think it is absolutely stunning and definitely one of my favorite arts to come out.
Oh, this was on my short list. This card is super sweet.
Yeah, this artist, Bastien Grivet, has not done a ton of Magic art, has done 2 arena arts, and then 3 versions of Magic cards in this kind of psychedelic prismatic style. Lotus Cobra. He also did the Omnath Locus of Creation promo for the set, as well as a Royal Elemental promo from somewhere. I don't think it came out. Oh, this is from a Secret Lair drop.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, the colors just are spectacular. This gives me vibes of the tomb, or not the tomb, the Cave of Wonders from Aladdin. Nice. With the big colors, with dark lines, real menacing, but also cartoony. I love it.
I mean, if anything, I was most surprised. Not only was the art fantastic, but also surprised this wasn't a mythic. This was reprinted from Zendikar, which it was a mythic in Zendikar, and it was very expensive back in the day, and it is not so anymore thanks to that. But a $36 Grand Prix promo will tell you how expensive Lotus Cobra used to be. All right, so for my number 9 here, this is this was my sort of entry into AFR. I think it is terrific. The first time I saw the Dungeons and Dragons module cards, I couldn't believe it. I was like, tell me this is real. Like, I want to believe because it looks so cool. And the way that you can have an entire card that has its own sort of color swath and it looks like the dungeon module, but it kind of does it. It still has all the things you need to be a Magic card, but it has just enough of that flavor that you just for a second, you're like, you know what, this really could be that. And to bring back Dieter Lizzie to Magic with Hive of the Eye Tyrant is just wonderful. This card is amazing. Hive of the Eye Tyrant is a rare land from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and it says if you control 2 or more other lands, it enters the battlefield tapped. You tap to add a black mana, and for a black and 3 generic mana until end of turn, it becomes a 3/3 black beholder creature with menace, and quote, whenever this creature attacks, exile target card from defending player's graveyard, and it's still a land. So it's good early, it's good late, it's been seeing a ton of play, and that image is just fantastic.
Yeah, speaking of goofy beholders, I love it. Dieter Lizzie has always been an artist with a little bit of humor, whether they were illustrating for an unset or not. And this is no different. It is a little scary in its cartooniness, and is perfect for an adventure module cover.
I like all of these lands. They are fantastic. And I also like the fact that they took us to that D&D cover, but it still has the ability to be read like a Magic card. Sometimes when they start to get too out of the box with these, like I feel like with, we talked about it last week with some of the secret layers, like the Dismember one, where they start to move around the actual placement of the cards, like the text, then I feel like it's often a little hard to figure out what's going on. But yeah, this one kind of does both of those things where it takes you out of the box, but you still can play it very easily.
Yeah, the also the first Dieter Lizzie image on a Magic card since Unhinged, 17 years. Is a lot of years. All right, let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, what you got?
My number 8 is my favorite of the constellation gods that they came out with in Theros Beyond Death. I really like the idea of doing the constellations, the god constellations, and trying to translate them to Magic cards. But I think that the one that translated the best was Nailia Kenite. Nailia Kenite is 3 generic and a green for a 5/6 god with indestructible. That isn't a creature unless your devotion to green is 5 or more. It has 2 other abilities. Creature spells cost a generic less to cast, and if you pay 3 mana and you can reveal the top of your library. If it's a creature card, you put it in your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard. I think that this one translated the best, partially because the bow is so perfectly set up to be a constellation figure. I think that the hammer doesn't translate as well for Perforos, even though that art is epic. The trident, I think the weapons are kind of not as obvious, but when you get Nailia and you get that bowstring pull and you get the shiny point on the end of the arrow, I actually think that this one matches up really nicely.
Yeah, you can even see the little stars for the quiver as well, which I think is a nice little touch.
I was literally about to say that. I'm like, I think the quiver in the back is like so sweet. That looks so cool.
Yeah. I really liked all of these constellations. I thought that this, they even did like something sort of similar for the demigods. They were enchantment creatures and they had that same sort of, it didn't have the constellation aspect, but very similar borders and very starry, which was really cool. I think that they did very well on these.
Yeah, I mean, I love this whole bit. They had a whole secret layer with this kind of on the original gods that they did, which was also great. But yeah, they knocked it out of the park with this one. That was awesome. Moving here to Nerd Girls number 8. What you got?
My only higher.
Well, you're only higher. All right, fair enough. I'll fill in the rest of it here. So, so there exists a problem in the world of MTG Arena, and that is if you are to unlock a style in another set that has this rare in it, you don't get all the rares you don't get free copies of the card from the other set. So if it was made in a historic anthology, for example, and it was later put in Innistrad Crimson Vow, for example, and you're like, wow, man, I sure do like that Thalia Garden of Thraben, and it sure is cool and pretty awesome. I sure would like that pretty awesome Thalia Garden of Thraben to be played as a 4 of in mine, and I added 3, and then I added the 4th one, and it was grayed out, and I had to use one of my... I have 8 Thalias on Arena right now because I wanted a full set of Thalia Garden of Thraben from Innistrad Crimson Vow. Very simple but very powerful card. White and generic mana for a 2/1 legendary creature human soldier with first strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 generic more to cast.
It goes farther than that. Thalia is the only thing I've seen with this sort of error in it, because there's not like fancy versions for each one. But also there was a Thalia secret lair that if you got the code and you put that into Arena, it gave you a bunch of different arts, but it only gives you one of them for some reason. And you actually have to craft them, even though they're not associated with any of the set.
So stupid.
So I have one of 4 or 5 different Thalia arts that were associated with that secret layer, and it doesn't let you skin your entire deck in them. You have to craft them even though they aren't actually in a set. I don't understand.
At least they can let you craft them. I've got that one Teferi Hero of Dominaria that I got from like Ravnica Mythic Edition or whatever from a million years ago. And that's it. It's got the one forever. I can't make any more.
If you have a format that has Thalia Guardian of Thraben in it, I will play as many Thalia Guardian of Thrabens as you're willing to let me play. I love that card. It was a paradigm shift in what a hate bear could be. It came down on turn 2. It had first strike, so it could hang with other 2/2s and beat them out and still deal some damage. I mean, I love this card. I love this card so much.
Yeah, this ultimately, I think, in sort of, when it came out and why it was important, when it did back in Dark Ascension, was that Wizards had tried these types of like, not Trinisphere, but, some sort of disruption on a stick. Yeah. The Vren Windmayer or whatever it was,
right.
Like, and Windrider for sure. In that, you want to punish the non-creature spell decks. Like, how do you do that? What's the line? And I think they found the exact line right here. Does it need to be better? Does it need to be more powerful? Does it need better stats? Like, Thalia is awesome. All right, let's move on here to number 7. Ruben, what's number 7?
I do love the Storybook Frames. And this is really when the Storybook Frames in Throne of Eldraine were really when the showcase cards started in their modern form of we're bringing these with the new set. They're not a separate release. They're coming out, but these are the showcase versions. And honestly, the showcase frames of Throne of Eldraine are my favorite. I really think that as a whole, the storybook pages make me feel something like wistful, and they feel like old fantasy. For a lot of people, this style of storytelling is the kind of feeling that a lot of people would get from, for example, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. This instead, this Camelot, Brothers Grimm storytelling is their childhood. And you really get that feeling. And I think particularly on the blue cards. And so I wanted to pick a blue card, and there wasn't a blue card that you could really pick with a Storybook Frame other than Brazen Borrower. I think everybody at this point has played against enough Petty Thefts to know what this does, but Petty Theft is a generic in a blue for an instant adventure that returns target non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. And then on the other side, once you get your Brazen Borrower in play, it's a generic blue for a 3/1 with flash and flying that can only block other creatures with flying. And oh, by the way, it is a fairy rogue, and it is a mythic from Throne of Eldraine.
The keys really seal the deal for me. It gives you that theft thing of a small fairy breaking into your home and stealing the keys to something, the keys to the treasury or whatever. And it does give you very much that story feel.
Yeah, this was a card that was huge from the moment that it showed up. There was a lot of questions as why is it called Petty Theft when it bounces things and doesn't take things. That was a wonderful argument we had for a while. Also, just like a very pushed mythic. Like, it does awesome stuff on turn 2, does awesome stuff on turn 3. It's a great threat, good early, good late. And a lot of people are like, it's just a 3/1, flyer. We're like, no, man, this card is an incredible mythic and was huge and hit the metagame like a freight train, and was there from the moment that it entered until the moment that it left. So, Brazen Borrower looks awesome in this sweet new frame. All right, Nerd Girl, what's number 7?
My number 7 is a little bit of a unique one for my list, because one of the things that I tend to sort of stay away from when it comes to a lot of these is crazy, ornate, overly busy things. And this particular one, I don't know why, but I absolutely adore the art, and the border and the frame has got to be one of the busiest there is. But I still think that it's absolutely wonderfully done. It's exactly what I would expect to think of when I was looking at like ancient gods. This is the sort of like unique mural and stuff I would expect to see with Valky, God of Lies. one colorless and a black for a legendary creature god. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card they reveal this way until Valki, God of Lies, leaves. And then for X, choose a creature card exiled with Valki. With converted mana cost X, Valki becomes that creature, or you can cast it for the flip side and you get a Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter. It is a bajillion mana. At 7 mana, it does a bunch of things, kills creatures, lets you recast them, adds mana, and comes into play with 5 loyalty. This art, even the bordering, again, is very what I would expect to see when you think of Valki. I think like, very, like Norse mythology. And this is the type of adornment I would expect to see on something associated with a Loki.
Yeah. I love I call these the scrimshaw borders because they look like, old whalebone carving. But I love these. And this one in particular, the way Valki looks in this picture looks like a movie poster. It feels different. It hits different. The way that it sort of encapsulates the madness and evil of Valki as disguising themselves is spectacular.
Well, it's Tybalt disguised, right?
Tybalt disguised as Valki, yes.
Yeah, right. Which is, again, adds so much more to the card, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you look like the extended art, like by comparison, just looks silly. Like it looks a little ridiculous comparatively. To me, I think I would describe this sort of as ornate. Is a way to put it, and that it's very intricate in all of its borders and things. I do love the striking colors. I love the black to the red. You could even see, I think, part of the way the art works, particularly on the Tybalt side of going from the black to the red and how well that works, which is awesome. And the card's great too. So high five. All right.
It looks like a comfy coat too.
It does. Move on here to my number 7. This is a card that is currently just whipping all kinds of butt. As it were, in the older formats. I love it in the Explorer format and the Pioneer format, which is great. Lord knows, I assure you, I wanted to add every single one of the Kamigawa showcase cards to this list. If I could, I would include most of them. But if I had to choose one and I loved it and they're there and they're cool and they're on a freaking bike and I want to see more cool vehicles in the future that are headlined by Greasefang Okiba Boss. A black, white, and a generic mana for a 4/3 rare legendary rat pilot. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. The Parhelion 2 always needed something. And by God, they gave it to us this year. And Greasefang will be a part of your metagame from now until they decide to ban it if they want to. Otherwise, get ready for the rat pilot to be hanging out doing his cool thing.
The art is very pretty. I like the colors, but for some reason, they are just kind of busy for me, the Kamigawa ones in general, but they are very pretty.
Yeah. And Greasefang is getting up to some shenanigans. She's definitely doing a lot, so it's obvious that it's busy in the art. Love the character, love the card. I'm a Greasefang apologist.
I will also say that if this was the original, Ruben, you and I would not have just done an entire season 1 where Greasefang was a boy because we did not know. But this one looks like a girl.
Much more feminine.
Looks more feminine, absolutely. So that's
it. In the last episode, someone was like, "By the way, it's not a he," and we were like, "Oh,
yeah,
oops."
Well, so special thanks to Tapioca, the artist for this, for giving us some more feminine vibes.
Right, some nice clear vibes there. But yeah, overall, again, I just love the Kamigawa aesthetic. I like how it's sort of cool. It feels like it's moving. It feels like it's electric. It feels like there's action going on all the time, which is what I feel like they were going for. And they did a great job. Let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6, I said I liked the Scrimshaw frames. I love them. I think they're great. I think they're the second best overall frame after the Throne of Eldraine storybook frames, because it feels Norse, right? It feels ancient. We get those Skyrim vibes here, and that's what you want. And if you want Skyrim vibes and you want dark and you want weird and you want that sort of legendary epic saga of lore, the Vorinclex Monstrous Raider that Richard Luong did with these Scrimshaw frames is insane. It's absolutely insane. Just the darkest stuff I could think of. It's a 6 mana 6/6 Phyrexian Praetor with Trample and Haste. When you get counters on things, you get twice as many. When your opponents get counters on things, they get half as many, rounded down. So sagas don't trigger. I've definitely conceded many a game when I cast a Elspeth Conquers Death and didn't get anything. And yeah, Vorinclex 6/6 Trample Haste was already good enough. You've already struck oil. You can stop digging. But we get to double all our counters. We get to ultimate Planeswalkers immediately. All that good stuff.
This is one of the more gruesome arts because you can actually see the like limp body in Vorinclex's hands. Yeah, this one is crazy. I also like that the the accents on the borders are like little dragons, which kind of makes it sort of beast-like, which I think is very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body and the eye sockets and the flesh tearing, it's a lot more than your average Magic card.
It's definitely a lot. That's for sure.
Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
My number 6 is a card that this is probably the card that I think has the biggest upgrade in art. Of all the cards on this entire segment, for me, this is absolutely stunning. I would get a print of this and put it in my house. This is by far, in my opinion, the just straight upgrade in art. Biggest leap, and that's Hinata Dawn Crowned.
Ooh, nice one.
This is a 4-mana colorless blue, red, white legendary Kirin Spirit. Flying trample spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. This gives me very Princess Mononoke vibes.
Yep.
Like this larger than life big spirit. And the coloring is just fantastic.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Absolutely.
If you haven't seen Princess Mononoke, you should fix that as soon as possible. And this certainly gives off those awesome animal spirit is awesome and powerful vibes.
Well, yeah, and it's much more stag-like. Because a Kirin is, I think, supposed to be a deer or a stag or a moose or something like with big antlers. And while Hinata looks cool, it doesn't really give me stag vibes so much as it gives me like bison or horse vibes.
Feels very horseish.
Yeah, which is fine. I love me a good horsey boy, but this art is definitely with the cloud antlers. I mean, you're getting exactly what you want with a legendary Kirin.
That's sweet. All right, so for my number 6, I cheated because that's what we do here.
Great.
And so I chose a whole cycle of these cards, and I think it's great because the same artist illustrated all of them, and they did a fantastic job at doing so. And there was certainly, not only was there sort of the surprise that we'd be able to get Trilands back into standard, we get Trilands that have basic land types, and that is huge. And every single one of the showcase versions, the comic book looking versions, is done by Robbie Trevino. And I think he did an amazing job. Feel free to pick any of them. And Dotha Triumph, for example, is a rare land from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. It's a plain swamp forest that taps, of course, for a white, black, or green. Enters the battlefield tap, and they all have cycling of 3 generic mana as their after tapping for their shard of mana.
Yeah, these are all spectacular. I actually came very close to putting 1 or 2 of these on my list. In particular, the Zagoth and Ketria Triomes have big avatar, blue alien avatar, not airbender avatar vibes to me, which I really like. And they just look gorgeous.
I think all the Triomes, the most recent set has like 2 different altars, and they've done a fantastic job with all of them. So there's like 5 different arts. I think that they are putting a lot of effort into these things that they feel like will be staples in the format, which is fantastic.
And to get ahead of the comment section, I know it's wedges, not shards. I'm sorry.
Sure. It's fine.
Let's move on here to number 5. Ruben, what you got?
Second higher on somebody else's list.
All right. Nerd Girl, what's number 5?
Well, my number 6 was very Princess Mononoke-esque. So now we're going to talk about the card that is very Spirited Away. It gives me those vibes, and I very, very much enjoy it. I love everything that's going on in the art, and I feel like I could blow it up and look at it for long periods of time and still not be able to take in everything that's going on. So we're going to talk about March of Otherworldly Light.
Nice.
This is an X and white spell, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. Exile target artifact, creature, enchantment with mana value X or less. If you look at like the detail, if you compare it to Spirited Away with all of the stuff around and all the little monsters and spirits and things, yeah, it's absolutely adorable.
Yeah. All I want to be is a Miyazaki nightmare monster. If I could just crawl out of my house as a 15-foot long caterpillar with train tracks for legs and 6 arms poking out the front and like a flashlight for a face, that's all I want out of my life. And we definitely get that feeling here.
Yeah, I too would like to be a unique monster. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who would want to be in a Miyazaki movie? It's fantastic. This was definitely on my short list again as one of the awesome Kamigawa cards that I would pick for this list because it's great. All right, so for my number 5, this is my choice of the Kaldheim Norse-esque, frame that looks super cool, that I thought was super impactful, and for me, one of the most badass ones, like front side and back side. The way they use the colors, I love the shadows and the warmth of the orange that they are able to get across here in Raidan, God of the Worthy. For white and 2 generic mana, that is a 2/3 rare legendary god with flying and vigilance. Snowlands your opponents control into the battlefield tapped, and non-creature spells your opponents cast with mana value 4 or greater cost 2 generic more to cast. Or you can play the other side, which is Valkmira, Protector's Shield, for a white and 3 generic mana. It is a rare legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage, and whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1 generic mana.
Redane is holding the shield on the front. I mean, this thing's badass. This thing is so cool. If you're gonna make a legendary creature that's a Valkyrie, you'd better bring it, and this definitely does.
Yeah, the wings, the whole thing, everything is great. I like that they included the Pegasus in there. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I like the hairstyle. There's certainly a lot to enjoy here. The backside is a little bit more unique. I'm not quite sure what the monster heads there mean, but the little medallion has a lot of like little key signatures, like the horn that you see in a lot of Norse stuff. You've got the wings, the sword, everything's there.
Yeah, and you have on the front side, the fact that like not only is her sword like got all that blood dripping off it, but also the shield has blood dripping off it. Like this is badass. This is a badass character. All right, let's move on here to Ruben's number 4. What you got?
My number 4 is a showcase card that Wizards sometimes is just like, we'll just put showcase cards on anything. There's no reason for this card to have a showcase card. There's no collectors out there that want to collect different versions of this card. However, this is the roundest friend-shaped beastie I've ever seen, and I love him, and his name is McKindy Ox, and it's the Roman Kotelnikov version. There's no reason for there to be a promo of this card. But look at him. Look at his face. Look at his little face. 4 generic and a white gets you a 4/4 Ox with landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls. I don't care. I don't care about what the card does. This is the roundest friend I've ever seen.
Look at that chunky boy. That is a chunkster right there. He's just doing his best. He is living his best life up on that mountainside.
You said it. I'm sorry. I might have misheard you. You said it starts with an M?
Yep.
McKindy, M-A-K.
Makindi from Zendikar Rising. And it's a big chunky boy with giant horns, and sometimes not all the showcase cards need to be the mythics and the most powerful, crazy stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And I like that. I appreciate it.
Looks like you can get this chunky boy for $0.01 on the marketplace.
1 penny.
You can get it for $0.01.
I like that they are using the showcase stuff to experiment with different types of art styles that they're not willing to commit to for an entire set, but they're willing to commit to it for a cycle of cards as bonuses. And this watercolor sort of sketchy feel is absolutely gorgeous. And I wouldn't mind having a set entirely done like this, but I can definitely see why they wouldn't. And I'm glad that those of us who enjoy it are still getting pieces of it.
There you go. All right, Nerd Girl, what's number 4?
My number 4, I'm not going to read to you, but I'm going to talk about how awesome I think that these promos always are. And that's why we're going to talk about Tamiyo. I don't even know the name because I can't read the card. Tamiyo completed Sage. These amazing Phyrexian cards. One of the things I've wanted to own the longest is probably that
Elish Norn.
Elish Norn, thank you. I'm bad at names. My brain is getting fried. The Elish Norn and the Phyrexian stuff, I'm glad that they're starting to come out with more of them, especially experimenting with more things being completed and turning Phyrexian, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's like turning Japanese, but not a cool pop song.
Oh my God.
Instead, you're turning Phyrexian. But yeah, this was a huge story moment, which was awesome. And the card itself is kind of neat. It's okay that it didn't drive the metagame. It wasn't the Wandering Emperor. It wasn't Kaito or whatever. But it was still fun. It was very powerful and limited and could see some more play as things rotate out of standard. But the idea that you are taking a beloved character and turning her into a Phyrexian is always, a bombshell, honestly.
Yeah. There is a user who partners with Scryfall named Fi or Die, who does the Phyrexian translations for the Phyrexian cards, which is why you're able to select the text on Scryfall, which is absolutely incredible.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's incredible in and of itself, isn't it? So for my number 4 here, this was my second. I couldn't go down to just one, but this is my second selection from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Absolutely love that set. And this is one of those card styles that I had to get it from Arena the moment it was offered to me, because I was like, have you seen how gorgeous Farewell is in its extended art from Fuzi Choco? It looks absolutely incredible. The card itself is great, but the artwork is just mwah. For 2 white, 4 generic mana, it is a rare sorcery that says choose 1 or more, exile all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or graveyards.
This is my number 8.
Nice.
I think it was very, very well done. I like the little kids there. And again, sort of watercolor wispy feel in the art style. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. We got, this is the second art from Fuzi Choco we've ever gotten. The Chibi Tamiyo
nice.
Was by this artist as well. And I believe she's a children's book artist, if I'm not mistaken, which you definitely get those vibes from this art. The paper birds flying away, the kids hanging out together, presumably saying goodbye.
Oh yeah, those are the cranes that are flying away, of all the birds exactly. And I love the Tamiyo, the Tamiyo Collector of Tales that she did, that they did for War the Spark, which was amazing. So yeah, let's go. Let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is the final hire on my list.
Oh goodness, Nerd Girl, what's your number 3?
Well, I do have a number 3, and we all sort of took turns, but it's interesting to see that the storybook art here is basically all of our favorites. I'm very into the fairy tales. I was super excited when Eldraine came out, and being a limited player, I was fine with it. I wasn't unhappy with a lot of the stuff going on with the general dishappiness of the set. But we all picked very different cards for being our favorite. And one of the arts that I thought really did a great job with the sketching, and it was also a relevant card, which, helped tip it as my spotlight here. And that's Bone Crusher Giant.
Nice.
Bone Crusher Giant, 2 colorless and a red. For a creature giant, it's a 4/3 that says when Bone Crusher becomes the target of a spell, Bone Crusher deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. Or you can cast it first for its instant adventure, which is a spell called Stomp. We have 1 colorless and a red for damage can't be prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. This is a major game changer here for Standard. And most people, by the time this rotated out, were very, very sick of it. So,
I mean, when you put something at the top of the chain, right? When you make something that's more efficient than any other option that you could be playing, when you make something that literally defines the entire metagame of does it die to Bone Crusher or not? And if it does, you just have to put that into your equations and make sure that's the thing. But the showcase version of this with the giant foot and there's like, and the memes that people made of like, Bone Crusher and like the format and like smushed. Yeah, that's what my favorite from this one.
Yeah, Stomp definitely was in charge of the format for a very long time. I knew we were in trouble when I saw a modern deck list for mono red burn that was entirely 1-drops and Bone Crusher Giant. And I was like, this was before we knew that it was going to take over. I was like, why is this new creature in this deck? It's a 3-drop that has the adventure. I guess adventure could be good. And then, oh, by the way, now we realize that it's a 2-for-1 automatically.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you can, go to the dome, for example, if this only hit creatures with a Stomp, I think it would be way, way different, if not way worse. The fact that 3 mana 4/3 is very, high up on sort of the curve on rate, along with an awesome ability that will make them take damage if they try to kill it. Like, bop to bop to bop. They made sure that this card was going to be great, and it was. So for my number 2, speaking of great cards that are ridiculous, speaking of cards that are so crazy powerful, they eventually banned them in, I think, Brawl or Historic Brawl or whatever, because this card was dumb. This card is a $20 bill, no matter how you find it, no matter where you find it. But the one that I really enjoyed was the extended art, particularly by Raymond Swanlin, of Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Ugin is a force to be reckoned with, an 8 generic mana mythic legendary planeswalker. It starts with 7 loyalty and has +2. It deals 3 damage to any target, -X, exile each permanent with mana value X or less that's 1 or more colors. And for -10, you gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the library. Then you sign the slip, and then you put your deck together and you put it in the box, and then you walk up to the front and you give them that slip. Because Ugin just ends games. That's what he does.
That is certainly true. Once you start getting planeswalkers this strong, I'm not a huge fan of keeping them in limited, but here we are. People love Ugin, and I myself have one of the alternate art Ugins, the original ones, and I adore them. Nice. There is a super cool character, and I'm glad that they're getting a lot of extra, different art spotlight.
I love the foreground feathers. The foreground wing makes me very happy in this art.
Way it flops, forward. It's just unique. You don't still really see a dragon that looks like that. This was one of the first times they really showcased full frame. Let's have stuff going behind the words that can actually be seen and relative to the artwork, and it was sweet. All right, let's move in here to number 2. Ruben, what's number 2?
The adventure module lands are my favorite. They are so goofy and so silly, and I love that they went this far with a meme almost. It feels so goofy, but then they tied it back to the history and kept it just to the lands and made sure that it made sense in the context of what they printed. And for my money, the one that looks the most like an adventure module and the one that's the best Magic card is Den of the Bugbear.
Nice.
Den of the Bugbear taps for a red, and if you control 2 or more other lands, then it enters the battlefield tapped. So play it first or second. And if you pay 4 mana, it becomes a 3/2 red goblin creature token with, whenever this attacks, you make a red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. This looks like the cover of a Dungeons & Dragons module. It's got the central enemy. You've got you as the main character, but in third-person perspective. You've got a little bit of splash of background. You got a little bit of other enemies coming at you. It's exactly perfect.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that for more reasons I will discuss in about 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, instead of going I wish we had talked about X, Y, and Z, we might talk about X, Y, and Z. You never know. And again, this is also one of the things where, if I talk about Hive and you talk about Den, let's keep going. That's awesome. Dirt Girl, what's number 2?
Yeah, my number 2 is going to be a sister card to what Ruben was just talking about. I actually kind of put it, I picked it because I thought it had the best adventure art, but also because it was pretty close to neck and neck to being one of the more used ones and in competitive Magic currently, and that's Lair of the Hydra. I absolutely adore this card. It is a I was going to say Greenland, but then the comments will get mad at me. It is a land. If you control 2 or more other lands, it comes into play tapped. It taps for a green. For X and a green, it becomes an XX Hydra. X cannot be 0. The dwarf paladin seeking the Hydra and going to the den to slay the monster. It really does a lot here. And all of these lands actually do this. And I think they do a fantastic job of recreating a D&D scene and bringing us to it, and also giving us the sweet nostalgia of the D&D cover.
Yeah, I remember this one on Arena for a couple reasons. One, for the rest of my life until they fix it, I have to go and choose this artwork specifically because I got another artwork later. And secondly, it took them like 2 or 3 releases after this released where people were literally saying, please stop prompting me to activate Lair of the Hydra for 0 when I can't activate it for 0.
Yep.
That's what always cracked me up. So this card was fantastic and looks just like the modules, and I love it, and it's playable as hell, and that's great. So for my number 2 here, this is a card that is just a badass. This is a card that also has like 3 versions. So I was very specific in the artist who worked on this one, because feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen a pinstripe suit on any character but Obnixalis the Adversary, and he's a BA. For a red, a black, a generic, he's 3 loyalty. For a legendary planeswalker, it has a casualty X copy. This copy, right? The copy isn't legendary and has starting loyalty X. As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do, you copy it. The copy becomes a token. +1, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. -2, you make a 1/1 red devil creature token with quote, when this dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And for -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life.
I wrote this down as Pinstripe Obnixalis to make sure that we were on the same page, and we were. This was my number 5.
Nice.
Absolutely badass. Dominant in every format that it's in.
Dominant.
It's kind of great. I love this card.
Yeah, the Obnixalis art, all of the different variations of it, even just like the splash art that they use for the advertising of it, is fantastic. I made my own little fan art of Hammy in that same sort of pinstripe outfit. It's insanely well done, and it really does give you that feel of what Capenna is trying to do. It gives you that like sort of, crime family excitement, and I really like everything about the Obnixalis art.
Yeah, that panache. And holding his hand right there, basically think like, was there a goblet or something that has been removed, or did they always, was that like his like come hither motion?
We just talk with our hands. This is just how we,
Come on, let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
Card is fantastic. Let's move on here to Ruben's number 1. What you got?
So there were a lot of great options. And I have 2 hires left still that are y'all's number 1s. So I like that. This one just sung to me in some way. I felt like this was the perfect marriage of an artist to bring in on a style of card that made sense, and was on an important character as well, which is why I really like Hisashi Momose's The Wandering Emperor.
Nice.
Sort of like I wouldn't say a chibi planeswalker, but sort of like a JRPG inspiration of a planeswalker. The Wandering Emperor is a 4-mana planeswalker with flash that does a whole bunch of stuff. If it entered the battlefield this turn, then you can activate her abilities as though they were an instant. You can exile an attacking creature. You can make a samurai. You can surprise, give your creatures +1/+1 in first strike. Card does it all. It slices and dices julienne fries, but it also looks beautiful in this particular art.
This was on my short list. This is the only card I think that I really wanted to put on here, but didn't. I decided I only wanted to put like the one planeswalker when I picked Tamiyo. But yeah, I adore the art. I like the cherry blossoms. I like the lighting in the back, the little lantern lights that they actually kind of show to accent. I think it's all very, very gorgeous.
Oh yeah, this one is absolutely fantastic. This card also is just one of the best designed planeswalkers in years, I think. Like, while I like the novelty of Obnixalis, the raw power and the sort of sophistication you can use with the Modern Emperor, you can play it, actively. You can play it, reactively. You can do whatever you want in terms of the way you want to work the game with its abilities, and I've always been super impressed by that. And the cheapest copy is like $25, so that makes sense. And goodness gracious, the foil etched version of this is about $200, but it's also BA, so it's where $200 comes from. Nerd Girl, what's number one?
So my number one, we haven't had any of this style on any of our lists so far, but it sounds like it's on Ruben's list possibly. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that kind of takes me away from really enjoying a lot of the showcase art is the craziness of the borders, and like with the Zendikar lands, you just have like the kind of random shapes about just to kind of make things a bit busier. And I tend to kind of steer away from those myself. But this particular art, though it is borderless, it's actually one of the only showcase arts to kind of bring you into the scene. Everything looks very realistic, even though it is kind of cartoony in comparison to a lot of the other art. The level of detail in this cartoon makes it almost look real to me. And again, the scenes are in such a way that I can almost feel this creature coming off of the page here. And that is what I think is very well done with the Ikoria creatures, the mutates. And I went ahead and I picked the Sea Dasher Octopus because it's my favorite. I have a little print there actually. Nice. And I think it's very well done. So it's a colorless blue for a creature octopus, mutate colorless and a blue with flash. This is whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. It's a 2/2.
This was an octopus, so I put it at my number 8. I love this card.
Wait, wasn't your number 8 Nailia Kenite?
Oh, did I? Oh no, this is my number 9. I messed up. Darn it. At this point I can only apologize. But this was amazing. I almost put the Abzan legend, the 5/5 that brings things back from your graveyard. Mm-hmm. It's like an undead panther. I almost put Migratory Greathorn of this style, the Dirge Bat that Kev Walker did, but ultimately I looked at this and I was like, this is the style I want on this kind of showcase frame. I think that this is exactly the perfect melding of card, flavor, function, beauty. It's everything I want.
Like, as someone who loves comics and loved comics growing up, and this kind of sort of comic book style, comic book coloring, the really dark lines around all the different shapes and whatnot, I just thought it brought a really fresh perspective to what some of these cards can look like. I love the frames and how they really showcase that and let you see through the frames, which was great. And I got no problems with Sea Dasher Octopus as your number 1. So that means by process of elimination, Ruben's number 3 and my number 1. The Innistrad sets weren't the most exciting things in the world. I think they almost weirdly split the excitement between the sets versus having like all the excitement and then another round of it or whatever you want to think of it. But I do know that there was definitely a point in time in which we understood that, there's Dracula versions of stuff, which I think was just a giant miss and no one really cared. But did you see that there's a Simon Belmont on Soren the Mirthless? Did you see Yami Kojima drew Soren the Mirthless? And that looks amazing. And it's gorgeous. And I love it. And the foil's $87. Sure. Soren the Mirthless is 2 black, 2 generic mana for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker, a mythic from Innistrad Crimson Vow. For +1, you look at the top card of your library, you may reveal the card and put it in your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. -2, you make a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. And for -7, it deals 13 damage to any target and you gain 13 life. But overall, it's Simon Belmont on a magic card.
And the Fang frames were good. Like, don't get me wrong. The Fang frames were all right. And this, so if they had done the double feature styling of having black and white art and done it on purpose like this art is designed to be black and white, right?
That little touch of color, that little
with a little tiny touch of color in the middle with the wine and the necklace.
Yeah.
If they had done all of them like this, home run, 10 out of 10. But instead what they did was that they just took art designed to be in color and then grayscaled it. The fact that, I mean, it's a gorgeous piece of art. It is a spectacular reference, and it's actual factual Kojima who did the art, which is wild. I mean, we've had some guest artists in the past,
right?
But not, I mean, it's tough for me to think of anyone who's a bigger deal than the Castlevania guy.
We've already got the Final Fantasy guy, so
yeah.
They showed this off on one of their pre-shows, and it was, people went crazy. This was the one people kept saying Fabio was in Magic now too. Like that was another comparison just because of
he's a thirst trap.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's a little thirst here for sure. I feel like this is what we could find in any of the general TV vampire shows.
Yeah, but
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Yoshitaka Amano did the War of the Spark Liliana, which was huge. And again, now we have a Yami Kojima. Like, let's go. I don't know how they get the contacts they do, but they made them, and God bless them for doing it. Because it's great. And that's it. That was our top 10 showcase cards. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10. And when we hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me. See you next week.
Thank you, Ruben.
Hey, there is a case to be made that this is our best show.
Wow. A showcase?
Showcase, as it were.
This guy. As we move to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and UltraSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, and subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.